Now, turning now to the 2024 election. President Biden is raising campaign cash today in Donald Trump's home state of Florida. In his remarks at a high-dollar fundraiser, President Biden went after Trump on abortion and the economy. He also told supporters he thinks he can win the Sunshine State despite no Democratic presidential candidate having done so in more than a decade. And joining me now, Eugene Daniels, White House correspondent for Politico and an NBC News political contributor. Adrienne Elrod, former senior aide to the Biden-Harris campaign, and Danielle Pletka, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and an NBC News contributor. Thank you all so much for joining us here on Meet the Press Now. Eugene, we just heard the president there in Florida courting donors and reminding them about what's at stake here. He's still hoping, though, to get the border deal across the finish line. How does the president navigate this moving forward? Yeah, I mean, one, you're right. You can see by him talking to donors and not really going to voters what they're doing there. They're not going to think, they don't think they're going to win the Sunshine State. But right. I think, and what do you make of these comments? He just said that just a short time ago. Is it realistic? Is he really? It's not at this point. The problem is there's not enough infrastructure from Democrats that's been there for years, right? When you talk to Democrats that are there, what they've said for years is that they don't get enough money or attention from national Democrats or the party. So that's one. But also the Latinos that are in that state that make up a large swath of that state have largely been moving away from the Democratic Party for years as well. And they haven't been making inroads with that community, though not a monolith, they haven't been making inroads with them either. And that's what Governor Ron DeSantis said over and over again in his now defunct campaign. Exactly. Now, Danielle, I want to turn to you. A lot of Republicans now they're walking a fine line. They're talking about border security, but the House Republicans anyway, are now standing in the way of this border deal. How do they navigate this moving forward?
Well, look, this is an issue that's becoming more and more important to voters. It's for the first time in polling, we're seeing that it's surpassing the economy among American voters. So I think there are a couple of different imperatives. The Republicans need this, but there's a package there, right? It's not just going to be immigration. It's a lot of budget things. It's aid for Ukraine. It's aid for Israel. It's not just a straight cut and dried issue. And so they need to be able to navigate all of that. And the problem is there's let me use this word gently, a real diversity of views among Republicans on Capitol Hill about these issues.
Obviously, a very sharp GOP divide. Go ahead, Eugene.
Well, there's also a political incentive for them not to do the deal, right? You have Donald Trump, the front runner for the Republican nomination and likely nominee, saying not to do it because they want to be able to use immigration as a cudgel against Biden and Democrats.
And to that point, Speaker Johnson was asked today whether he was killing this bill because of Donald Trump. I want to play what he said.
That's absurd. We have a responsibility here to do our duty. Our duty is to do right by the American people, to protect the people. The first and most important job of the federal government is to protect its citizens. Our majority is small. We only have it in one chamber, but we're trying to use every ounce of leverage that we have to make sure that this issue is addressed.
Adrienne. Absurd.
It's absurd that he just called that absurd. I mean, we know exactly what's going on. Eugene just said it, and so did you. The Republicans don't want a deal on this because they want this to be an issue that continues to be at the forefront of the presidential campaign, plain and simple. There's a bipartisan deal on the table, but House Republicans in particular are obstructing it. They don't want it to pass. Biden has made concessions. Senate Republicans have made concessions. This is the first time in a while that we actually have a real deal that can pass. But Mike Johnson and his buddies won't let it happen.
And do you think Democrats, a couple months ago, do you think Democrats would have supported this deal? It's pretty remarkable how far we've come in a couple months.
You know, it's an excellent question. I think it's too hard to really know for sure. But obviously, as you said, this is becoming more and more of an issue. We're seeing, more and more Americans tuning in. I think, quite sadly, the busing and flighting of some of these immigrants to major cities like New York, Washington, D.C. Is only making it more of an issue that people outside of border towns and border states are focusing
Certainly.
on.
That's not sad, by the way. That just means there's a problem that now everybody recognizes.
It's certainly a big part of this. Prominent Democrats like Eric Adams and other big city mayors and governors, that definitely has changed the calculus here. Really quickly, I want to read an op-ed that Senator Rick Scott He wrote today, he says, securing the border requires forcing Biden to enforce the law. Nothing we have seen over the past 3 years suggests he will do that. That is why McConnell's plan to give Biden and the Democrats a win that they can campaign on and claim they're working to solve the border crisis is a joke. That's to the point we were talking about before. How deep is this GOP divide, as you called it, this diversity of opinion?
Yes, I know. I'm very gentle in the way I speak at all times. Look, this is the same Rick Scott who brought us the great 2022 Republican victory, if I recall, not to be mean about things. It's in all of our interests to see this issue dealt with. The president could have done something over the last 3 years. This isn't a victory for Joe Biden or a victory for, the speaker or for Donald Trump. This is about having secure borders in our country, and serious politicians need to do something about it. And for the people in these towns and the people in New York and the people in Chicago and for these illegal immigrants themselves, we need to do something about this problem. The whole politicking behind this is not helping.
And Eugene, turning now to this impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas, just today, Representative Don Bacon, he said he'd come out for that impeachment. Is he doing this just backing it, knowing that it's not going to go anywhere in the Senate?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that are doing things like that. People have their own political machinations and the whys behind their decisions. And at this point, they need a boogeyman. Mayorkas has become that boogeyman. I think he doesn't like that he's the boogeyman, but he has been, right? And they're also doing that to President Biden because they, again, want to use the border as they move forward. And there's nothing better than to be able to say, we impeached the DHS secretary because we feel like he wasn't enforcing the law. DHS thinks differently, and largely what's really interesting when you talk to folks at the White House and at DHS, their frustration is not that is that he's getting impeached, but more importantly, that it's more on a difference of opinion on actual policies as opposed to something else.
Yeah. Opinions, then, not really facts at this point.
That's the opinion.
Yeah, Adrienne, I want to turn now to the economy. The White House has been touting these new consumer confidence numbers, saying that finally, they're starting to get some credit for this economy. I was talking earlier with Garrett Haake on how Donald Trump is now moving away from the economy.
He wants to talk about the border.
And he's even taking credit for the economy. But does it really matter if Americans are still feeling this in their pocketbooks? While, we here in the media, the narrative may be starting to change, what if, the price of food continues to be high over the coming months ahead of this election? Yeah,
I think this is where the White House is being really smart because, yes, they're going out and touting the four major economic bills that President Biden passed. They're touting the fact that the GDP is up, that inflation is down, wage growth is up. There's so much to talk about, but they're also making it clear that we still have work to do. You re-elect Joe Biden, he's going to make sure that your prescription drug prices stay low, that, the cost of insulin stays at $35 or less. They're talking about what they're going to do in the future and also making it clear that if Donald Trump comes in, all he wants to do is pass corporate tax cuts, which is not going to help middle-class Americans. So I think they're smart to follow up with, here's what we will do in the second term if you re-elect us.
And Danielle, you're shaking your head. I want to come to you. What do you make?
I am. Look, when we talk about this, we live in such a bubble here in Washington. We have people from New York who come on. We have people from California. Well, no, not even them anymore. They are not suffering. We are not suffering, excuse me. My 401k looks great. Thank you so much. The stock market's really doing well. But I'm not worrying about the price of milk, the price of eggs, the price of chicken, the price of gas, which is exorbitant. These are people who are living on the margins.
Gas prices have gone down substantially.
Okay, fine. You need to come to my neighborhood. But again, for Americans, I think what you outlined is exactly the problem. That even though Biden may tout these things, and inflation really has come down as a statistical matter, you've got to feel it at home, though. And people don't.
And Eugene, I made this point, but I want to get your take on it. Former President Trump trying to take credit for this economy. Is anybody going to buy that?
I don't know. I mean, what you see with his voters and his supporters, they'll kind of buy whatever he's saying, whether or not it makes sense or that the idea behind it bears out with the facts. But I think largely people are not going to do that. But it is interesting that he's going from stopping to talk about the economy, because what that tells you is that it's much better than it was when he first started doing doing it. So even he feels like that is not a winning message, whether that changes or not. And when you're talking about the trying to figure out how the Biden campaign messages this, what they've started to do is talk about kind of overall prices of a home, that kind of thing. What are you doing at home? And that's probably smarter than trying to talk about the very individual pieces of the economy.
Certainly, we expect to hear a lot more from Donald Trump and the border in the coming months. Thank you all so much for joining us, Eugene, Adrienne, Danielle. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.